Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Natasha and I do book things here. Today's video is one of the most exciting videos of the year, something that I love filming every year, and that is my top favorites of the entire year. The one thing I will say before I get into this is that I ended up rating 41 books 5 stars in 2018. I was generous with my 5 stars. I just threw them out into the air. I rated a lot of things 5. So if you're wondering why you don't see a certain book here in this list that I may have mentioned as a favorite before, it's because I have 41 of them, and I just condensed this into my top 18 of 2018. These are in no real particular order. These are just ones that first came to my mind and I picked and I grabbed them. This video may be a little bit gushy. I try not to just go, I just like this. I try to give you a little bit of reason why I did. Why do I feel like my house is getting broken into right now? No, maybe not. So this video will be long. I have 18 books to talk about, and so I'm assuming this video is going to be like 30 minutes. So grab a snack, maybe grab a drink, and let's get into it. First book is a horror, and it's the last horror that I read of the year. When I'm filming this, it's about December 20th, so I'm assuming I'm not really going to be reading much in the last part of the year. Maybe I'll update you guys on my December wrap up if there's any new favorites, but I don't think there's gonna be. Also, I have a fucking cat hair stuck on my lip. Okay, that's better. No, it's not, it's still there. Okay, that is Nosferatu by Joe Hill. Really no surprise here. I've loved pretty much everything that I've read from Joe Hill so far. I loved The Fireman, I loved Strange Weather, absolutely love Nosferatu. This is a sort of Christmassy horror book about this creepy guy and sort of other worlds and like going into yourself, into your other worlds, and like I loved all the characters, loved the main character, loved the villain. This definitely gave me Christmas vibes and like spooky horror Christmas vibes, and it put me in put me in the Christmas spirit, not gonna lie, in like the best way possible, just in its depiction of Christmas Town, which is this place that exists in the mind of the bad guy in this. It's gruesome, it's graphic, it's a whole fucking lot of fun, and if you like horror and you just want to go on like a wild ride, that's kind of a pun if you read this book, then I do suggest Nosferatu. It's one of my favorite horrors of the entire year. Moving into my next horror, we got Joe Hill and we got his daddy. We got Stephen King here. This is my favorite Stephen King of the year. It was a toss-up between this and The Stand, but I ended up going with Salem's Lot as my favorite King of the year. This is a vampire story set in a small town. It's very creepy, slow burn. I love it. A lot of people think it's boring. It's fine. I think it's just a nice, perfect slow burn, atmospheric, describes the whole town and all its people and the vampires that come into the town. I absolutely love this book. Gave me creepy vibes big time. Probably one of the more scary Kings that I've read out of his collection so far, and absolutely adored it. Recommend this to anybody who wants a more traditional vampire story. Not as fast-paced, just more slow and spooky. Getting into graphic novels, I have 2 of my favorite graphic novels here. I didn't read that many. I didn't read as many graphic novels as I would have liked to. They're just very expensive here, I'm not gonna lie. And unless I can find them used, which I found both of these actually in my used bookstore, I tend not to pick up too many, and I'm also kind of lost in what I might like, but I did like these 2. The first one I have here is really no surprise. This is Saga Volume 1. I started Saga, Volume 3, I believe, and this is just so much fun. So many weird characters. The art is just so bizarre and strange, and like weird spider ladies. Like listen, all the characters and all the different like races, I guess, like alien races, assuming they're aliens even, I don't know. Just fascinating and really compelled to continue on with more of the Saga series once I have the money to continue reading them. The next 5-star graphic novel that I absolutely loved was I Hate Fairyland by Scotty Young. This is so much fun. Again, the artwork in this is just some of like the best things that I've ever seen. It's so bright, colorful, graphic, gory. This is about Gertrude, who ends up in a, like, getting sucked into Fairyland, and she is there with the purpose of finding the key to get out of Fairyland, and sort of deals with her vulgarness and her, like, funny personality. She gets stuck in Fairyland for, like, she's now 37 years old, but's trapped in, like, this kid body. It's just a lot of fun. It's really, really fun. It's like, it's one of those, like, kid colorful graphic novels, but meant for adults. It's a ride. So I got this one and the second one, and absolutely love them. Gave them both 5 stars, so. And the next stack of books here, the following, what, 13 are all novels, and a lot of them, as I've come to sort of realize, are young adult. I think this year was just my big year for loving, like, hard-hitting young adult, and yeah, they're all a little bit different, but they're all, I don't know, I don't want to say they're all similar, but I don't know. Well, you'll see. You'll see. Hopefully you get an idea of my taste, I guess. I don't know. I read a lot of good stuff this year. So another one of my favorites here was one that I've read fairly recently. That is A Quiet Kind of Thunder by Sarah Bernard. This one was highly recommended to me by a lot of people, saying that I would like it, and I absolutely did. Gave it 5 stars. This follows a teenage girl, Steffi, who is a selective mute, I'm assuming Reese, who is deaf, and so they use their basic understanding of ASL to communicate, and it follows their cute, adorable love story from there. And it truly is just a cute, adorable love story between these two characters and their little sort of like trials and tribulations that they face. While I'm hard of hearing, I don't know ASL, and I'm not deaf, I did relate to many different scenarios in this book, just having dealt with myself being hard of hearing. Like, it's just a certain feeling you get, even just in certain, I don't know, certain scenarios. And so I related heavily to a lot of the scenes in this, and I thought it was just cute and lovely, and I liked a lot. So next favorite, again, highly suggested by everyone else. I read it, loved it. That is A Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake. This is a hard-hitting YA contemporary that is so multi-layered and beautiful. This follows the story of Myra and her brother. Her twin brother's name is Owen. Sorry, I had to remember that. They are twins, and Owen is accused of sexually assaulting one of her friends, and Myra herself deals with, you know, wanting to believe her friend, wanting to believe her brother, not believing her brother, not believing her friend, like just all the different layers there. Her family believing her brother, and just sort of standing up for believing women, and just so many different layers to this, and it was so accurately portrayed. I cried for sure in this. I was upset by certain things in this, and it just makes you think truly what you would do, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's stunning, and if you can handle that sort of subject matter, I highly suggest this. This is a fantastic book. One of the better ones, again, of the year, obviously, in my favorites. And it was just so hard-hitting and accurate, I guess. Yeah. Moving on, I have another horror, and this is more of a funny, light-hearted horror, I suppose. This is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, and this is, I think, a contender for my favorite covers of the entire year. I actually like this book so much, in fact, that I went and bought the hardcover edition, because this one is like a yearbook, and it has like little secrets written in the front and the back of the yearbook. So it's the book that I have 2 copies of. So is it like on my favorites? Yeah, it is. This is just a lot of fun. This is set in the 80s, and it follows 4 teenage girls who go out to like a cabin kind of thing for a weekend. They all drop a bunch of acid, and then one of their friends ends up possessed, and then it turns into a possession story that focuses heavily on character and friendship, and just sort of like all the YA sort of tropes, I guess, about that. I thought it was just fun, funny, spooky in part. The actual possession part was pretty fun, and I don't know, I really liked it. I cried at the end because it's a tale about friendship in the long run, and it was just great. So loved it. If you're looking for like a fun possession story. There you go. So another favorite of the year, and it's sort of realization about myself that I love books that have the slightest bit of like magical realism in there. I ended up really liking them. I thought I liked either straight contemporary and like horror and not much of anything else, but as I've come to like look through this stack, a lot of the books that I like in here actually have that like little bit of magic sort of. Why are you stopped outside my house? Hold on, this might be my mail. So yeah, I realized that I end up liking a lot of contemporary that have magical elements. So one that I thought was just absolutely fantastic was Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno. I think you guys are going to see this on a lot of favorites of this year. This book is just so well written and beautiful. It follows a story of Georgina, who is a girl who lives on this island, and she's from a family of witches, and there's this beautiful story like in this about this bird that comes to the island, and they have a whole festival about this bird, and it just follows the story of what happened when the bird doesn't come to the island, and it's just so beautiful and lovely, and like one that I need to reread this year. It's just, I loved all, like everything about this book I thought was just so great. Oh, I loved it. I just loved it a lot. Moving on to a unexpected favorite. I say that, but I saw the cover for this and went, that is the most interesting cover. I was like, I bet you I like this book. Finally got around to reading it and loved it, which is just some of the best things when that happens. That is Sourdough by Robin Sloan. And this is such a bizarre little book. There's just this cover with this little floating sourdough bread. It has this like interesting cover where it's like circles around this. I don't know if you guys can even see that on camera. It's a very pale colored book, but I was like, what is this book with this little sourdough bread? Like, I need to read this. And I read it and loved this book. I listened to it on audio, which I think was just the perfect way to absorb this book. So this follows the story of Lois. This is an adult contemporary magical book, I guess. Really hard to figure out how to describe this one, actually. It's set in a world that's a slight future from ours, and she's a programmer at this lab, and they're developing essentially food that people can just eat and sustain like themselves on. So almost like Soylent, where it's just a quick meal and it just replaces all other food. That's the kind of thing that she's working on, and she's working on robotics and stuff like that too. From that, she ends up working these long hours and long days and discovers this restaurant that has sourdough bread and this like amazing soup. I'm telling you guys, the description of food in this, if you don't immediately want to eat 17 loaves of bread while reading this book or after reading this book, I don't know what's wrong with you. But she gets this sourdough bread, and the owners of this restaurant leave her with a sourdough starter, and she has to take care of it and feed it and make these sourdough breads. And it just follows the story of her making this like magical bread, and the bread is a little whimsical, and it's just, listen, this book was great. And it's like, I don't think I'll ever find a book quite like this, which makes this so special to me. I just feel like there's a lot of books, especially in YA, where I feel like I could read the same sort of story again and again and I would like it. This one though, I feel like is just so unique of all the things that I've read this year that it's its own little nugget of perfection to me. So moving on to one of my favorite thrillers of the year, that is The Child Finder by Renee Denfeld. This one is dark. It's about a kidnapping and trying to find this child, but the way that it's told is beautiful because it tells it from a very innocent, childlike perspective of the kid that is kidnapped. And it's hard because you got to kind of look between the lines and you got to read through a child's eyes, but it's beautiful. It's, you know, obviously dark subject matter, but it ends up just being this like lovely written book. Like, it's written really well, and I like graphic books. I like body horror and gore, and this has none of that, but this was my favorite thriller of the year, just in its subtlety and the way that certain horrible tragic scenes are written. Yeah, it's set in winter as well. If you're looking for a book set in winter, that's this one, and that plays a part in it too. And yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say too much more about it because it's a thriller. You don't really want to give away anything that happens, but just know that if you can, again, handle that subject matter, then I highly suggest this. It's a little bit of a shorter one too, so you should read through it pretty quick. Next favorite is a romance. You can see my genres all over the place. That's why my reading is odd. Ooh. My favorite of the year is the Kiss Quotient. It's, you know, it's one of those books where it's like, if you haven't read this yet, what are you doing? Again, not really my typical genre, but when it was pitched to me as good as The Hating Game, which was my favorite romance of the previous year, the Kiss Quotient was just wonderful. I think I like this more than The Hating Game. Sorry, Chelsea, but I think I did. So this follows the story of Stella, who is a 30-year-old woman who is well-to-do in her career, making that money. So the thing with Stella is she's successful in everything, but she feels like she's missing out on sort of like her sexual identity and being promiscuous because she does identify as being on the autism spectrum. And so she decides to find someone to help her out with her sexuality, and so she hires a male escort, Michael, and it's great from there. That's all. I like romance books where there's a little bit of, you know, stories about the people's family and issues and fun and like also really good sexy sex times. And apparently this is being adapted, which I can't wait to see how that goes. This was great. So it wouldn't be a favorites list if I didn't mention this book, because it was maybe up there as my favorite book of the year if I'm gonna be like really specific. I just read this book and was like just shook, and I loved it. It's great. It's the book that I quoted as rating 7 stars if I could. That is Anger is a Gift by Mark Oshiro. I read this book prior to meeting Mark, so don't think that like me meeting him influenced my decision of that rating at all. I happily met him after I read this book and then forced all my friends to read it. So this is a YA contemporary book that follows a teenager named Mosh Jeffries, and he's dealing with a lot of shit, okay? So he deals with panic attacks and the aftermath of his father's death, and being in a school where they're bringing in a lot of like police force into his school and they don't feel safe at school, which is something that I've sort of read hints of in other books, but this one really goes into detail about, you know, what teenagers feel when there's now like a police presence on campus and how they feel like criminals because of it. There's so many layers to this book as to why I like it. You know, it talks about what it means to be a black teenage male, gay, dealing with this police force. His mom is a badass, just, you know, protesting and stuff like that. It's just, listen, this book has so many things that I can't relate to on my day-to-day life, which makes this a diverse read to me, but makes it so understandable, and it cuts so deep. Like, it just, I don't know, I felt a lot of feels reading this, okay? I cried a lot. I was like shocked by parts of it. It's just, it's a lovely book. It's just hard-hitting and emotional, and having actually like met Mark after, like, he's just such a wonderful human being that like I really just want everyone to read this book, because it was a great book before I met him. I met him, he's a great person, so like y'all should read the book, right? Yeah, okay. Moving on. Next up is a book in that YA magical realism sort of category, but this one is a little bit more silly and a little bit more fun. One that was highly anticipated for me and I ended up really liking it, so that's fun. That is Undead Girl Gang by Lily Anderson. I matched this book. Kind of. This is a story about a teenage girl who is Wiccan, and she basically ends up bringing these 2 teenage girls back to life, and they're now zombies. That's basically this book, and they try to figure out what happened to these girls, and it's just, it's fun, it's kind of goofy. Is it like a 100% accurate portrayal of Wicca? No, but like, you know, also it's fun, so I can kind of, I don't know, like I can kind of push it aside for the sake of entertainment, which I don't normally do, but this one is just, I don't know, I fucking liked it. It was fun. Like, teenage zombie girls. What more could you want? The like older witch lady in this is just fun. I don't know, this one is more I suggest if you guys want like more of a lighthearted, fun read. Maybe read this in the summer. It's just, it's a blast. Next is my favorite adult contemporary. Ooh, this book. This book though. Again, no surprise for anyone who's been on my channel and knows my reading taste. That is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is so good. I don't know, I expected a lot from this after Chelsea like raved about it and other people raved about it. And I read it and just went, this story is so good. This follows a journalist who is requested to do like an interview of Evelyn Hugo, who is this like old-timey movie star, and it goes through the story of her life and the story of her 7 husbands and what that all means, and Evelyn herself being bisexual and what that means. And it's layered, it's fantastic, it's hard-hitting in parts, it's emotional, it's pretty wild, and then the ending fucking just getcha. Just getcha. Just right in there, getcha. It's one of those books that, oh, here we go. I should include this in my reacting to 1-star reviews of this, because I read this and I can respect other people's opinions, but this is one that I'm like, I don't know how anyone rated this low, because it's just good. And it's one of those books that I'm like, I should react to the 1 stars because I think I would be really pissed off. Just because I think this book is just a gem, and I don't know, I fucking loved it. It's great. Alright, we're getting into the last 4. We're gonna make it here. It's gonna be long, I told you guys. Alright, this is another magical realism contemporary YA book. This one started that for me, and I love this book. This is The Apocalypse of Elena Mendoza by Sean David Hutchinson. And I read and I liked other works by him, but this one I like just the most, I think, out of the ones that I've read. Sorry, Dylan, but We Are the Ants is, this is better than We Are the Ants. So this follows Elena, who is the product of a virgin birth. What does that mean? You have to read the book to find out. There's these little magical elements, like the Starbucks mermaid talks to her, and she can like heal like people and stuff. It's just, listen, this is strange, it's bizarre, it's wonderful. You can't explain this unless you've read it, really. It's one of those books. It's so fun and interesting and weird, and I just like bizarre books. I think that's just a thing that I like. This one is just very bizarre. I feel like the front flap is only like the first 50 pages of this book, and then the rest you're kind of left on this wild ride of figuring out like what this is, and I loved it. You should check it out. My stack is getting higher than my camera right now. So up next is a sci-fi. Again, the genres are all, they're all over the place, but my favorite sci-fi of the year, really no surprise, I read The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. Literally, if you guys have ever seen the show Firefly, essentially it's Firefly, only there's like more alien races and diversity and acceptance and fun and set in space. It's great. It's one of those books that I have like nothing bad to say about it, and I have told so many people to read this book. A lot of my guy friends are like, oh, what book do you recommend me? And I'm like, this one. You read sci-fi, bitch? Read this. I don't know, it's just diverse and fun, and it's like these conversations of how like all these different alien races interact with each other, and like, I don't know, it's just, this is one of the most diverse books that I've read. None of the diversity is like actual human races. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making good sense of that, but you know, you look at this group of travelers and you look at them accepting each other so well, and it kind of mimics, you know, real world scenarios where it's like, okay, well, why can't we all accept each other for our differences and our uniqueness? Yeah, this is wonderful. I do have the second book. I don't know why the hell I haven't read it yet. I'm like saving it. I don't know why. I need to read the second one, so that's gonna go right there. Then moving into the last 2 books, the second to last one is another YA contemporary, a bit of a hard-hitting one, more of a diverse read for me. That is Love, Hate, and Other Filters. This book follows a teenage girl, Maya, who is dealing with a lot of things, dealing with a lot of Islamophobia, and this book upset me so hard. I cried several times at this book. This book just upset me so deeply, just with the amount of racism that she deals with in her school and by teachers and by everyone around her. It's just upset me ooh, I want to like cry thinking about this book. It upset me so deeply that anyone has to deal with this, which is one of the reasons why I like reading more diverse books or things that are books that are different from my everyday life, because I want to feel for these characters. I want an idea of the things that people go through, and this book just put me there. Now, obviously I can't speak for the representation myself, just because I don't know, and I'm okay with not knowing. I accept the fact that I don't know if the representation is the best, but for me, it made me think and made me feel, and her story was just, I don't know, really beautifully told and really upsetting to me. It's one of the reasons why I gave it 5 stars, and I think that it was one of my favorite books of the year just because it got me like in the feels. And I highly suggest that everyone pick this up and read it. And then last but not least, this is the last of my favorite books of the year, and that is Radio Silence. This book, again, is just a beautifully told YA contemporary book. It's a very long one. It's good though, and this follows the story of Frances, who is obsessed with this podcast that she listens to, and she makes art for this podcast, and then finally discovers the person behind it, and their story of friendship and just realistic portrayals of teenagers in this book makes it so beautiful and makes me want to read everything else that Alice Oseman has ever written. I don't know, this one has some of the best and worst parents in a book, and so if you deal with, like, you know, a lot of turmoil from your parent at all, then maybe this might be a little triggering, emotional, and I loved it. So that is the last of my favorites. I have to go. I literally have like 2 minutes of recording space left on my camera. That's how much videos I've been recording lately. I'm gonna try to hold some of these. I don't think it's gonna happen. I'm gonna not hold my Stephen King because that one just falls every single time I hold it. That is, oh wow. That is all of my favorites of the year. Ho ho ho. Yeah, that's all my favorites. I do hope you guys like this video. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these, if they're also your favorites, what some of your favorites are, books that I should read in 2019. I don't know, just leave me a bunch of comments down below. I'll be sure to read them and reply to them when I can. And yeah, I do hope you guys like this video. Are you surprised by any of these? If you watch all my videos, you shouldn't be. Yeah, so I do hope you guys are all doing good. Please stay safe in the new year. This might not be my last video before the new year, but like, please, if you're watching this, stay safe. Have a good, happy holidays with your family, whatever you're doing. If you're not with your family, great, cool, I don't blame you. But basically, have a happy holiday. Be kind to yourself and be safe. Drive safe. Wear shoes. Don't get frostbite. Again, it's a PSA from Natasha to you. Wear shoes on New Year's, don't get frostbite. Yeah, so until my next video, I will talk to you soon. Bye!